May 18th, 1941. The port of Gottenhafen on the Baltic coast. Under the cover of a moonless night, the largest and most formidable battleship ever built by Germany slips her moorings. The Bismarck, 52,600 tons of steel and fury, equipped with 8 massive 15-inch guns and armor thick enough to withstand the punishment of an entire fleet. Beside her sails the heavy cruiser, Prinz Eugen, her companion for what the Germans codenamed Operation Rheinübung, Exercise Rhine. Their mission? Break into the Atlantic and wreak havoc on the convoys, keeping Britain alive in her darkest hour. On the bridge stands Admiral Günther Lütjens, commander of this naval task force. He is a calculating man, hardened by years of naval warfare. His face betrays no emotion, but inside he knows the odds. The original plan called for a much larger force. The battleships Scharnhorst and Gneisenau were to join them, but Gneisenau sits damaged in Brest, torpedoed and bombed. The mighty Tirpitz, Bismarck's sister ship, is not yet ready for combat. With less than half his intended strength, Lütjens must proceed anyway. The Führer demands action. The British convoys must be stopped. The German ships make their way through the narrow straits connecting the Baltic to the North Sea. On May 20th, as they pass through the Kattegat, they're spotted by the Swedish cruiser Gotland. Though Sweden is neutral, Lütjens knows this sighting will likely reach British intelligence. He makes a fateful decision. They'll stop in Norwegian fjords to refuel and wait for nightfall before continuing. The delay gives the British precious time to prepare their response. In Britain, the news electrifies the Admiralty. The Bismarck is coming. Prime Minister Winston Churchill personally demands that every available ship be sent to intercept. The stakes couldn't be higher. Britain is fighting for survival, dependent on Atlantic convoys bringing food, fuel, and weapons from America. If Bismarck and Prinz Eugen reach the open ocean and successfully raid these lifelines, the results could be catastrophic. Every available ship is ordered to intercept. The home fleet mobilizes in what becomes the largest naval operation since Jutland. Admiral John Tovey, commanding from the battleship King George V, knows exactly what's at stake. He dispatches every ship he can muster. The mighty battlecruiser Hood, commanded by Vice Admiral Lancelot Holland and carrying 1,419 men. The brand new battleship Prince of Wales, so fresh from the shipyard she still has civilian workers aboard. Cruisers Norfolk and Suffolk for reconnaissance, and dozens of destroyers. Force H at Gibraltar, comprising the battlecruiser Renown and the vital aircraft carrier Ark Royal, are ordered to steam north at maximum speed. Even the old battleship Ramillies, escorting a convoy southeast of Greenland, is detached and sent to intercept. May 23rd. British reconnaissance aircraft spot Bismarck and Prinz Eugen refueling near Bergen. The hunt is on. The German ships depart that evening, heading northwest through the Denmark Strait, the treacherous passage between Iceland and Greenland. It's a gamble. The strait is narrower, more dangerous, but also less patrolled than the wider passage between Iceland and Scotland. Heavy fog and deteriorating weather provide cover as they steam through icy waters dotted with pack ice. Dawn breaks on May 24th. The cruisers Norfolk and Suffolk have been shadowing the German ships through the Denmark Strait, using their radar to track them through the fog. They've been reporting Bismarck's position, allowing Vice Admiral Lancelot Holland aboard HMS Hood to plot an intercept course. At 5:35 a.m., lookouts on Bismarck's bridge spot smoke on the horizon. Hood and Prince of Wales are closing fast. The dreaded confrontation has come. Enemy battleships bearing 030, the lookout reports. Lütjens stares through his binoculars as the massive silhouettes emerge from the morning mist. HMS Hood, the pride of the Royal Navy, and the brand new HMS Prince of Wales. The range is 26 kilometers and closing rapidly. At 5:52, Hood opens fire. Massive columns of water erupt around Prinz Eugen as the shells fall short. On Bismarck's bridge, Captain Ernst Lindemann turns to Lutyens. "Permission to open fire, Admiral." Lutyens hesitates. He knows engaging the Royal Navy head-on goes against his orders. Perhaps they can outrun them. More shells crash into the sea, closer now. "Permission to open fire, sir," Lindemann repeats, his voice tense with urgency. The British ships are too close. There's no escape. "Open fire," Lutyens orders coldly. The thunder of Bismarck's 8 15-inch guns reverberates through the ship as they hurl their massive shells across the sky. The first salvo misses, sending towering geysers skyward. Prinz Eugen scores a hit on Hood, starting a fire that's quickly contained. Then Prince of Wales lands a shell on Bismarck, penetrating her bow. Water begins flooding into compartments. A second hit strikes below the waterline, flooding a boiler room and causing an oil leak that leaves a telltale trail in the water. Bismarck fires her fifth salvo. The shells arc through the air and find their mark. One penetrates Hood's thin deck armor and reaches her aft ammunition magazine. In an instant, 112 tons of cordite propellant detonates in a catastrophic explosion. A massive column of fire erupts from Hood's deck, rising hundreds of feet into the morning sky. The explosion tears the mighty battlecruiser in half. Her bow section continues forward briefly before the stern rises vertically, and within 8 minutes of the first shot being fired, Hood disappears beneath the waves. Of her 1,419 crew, only 3 survive. A cheer erupts on Bismarck's deck. Men embrace, overcome with relief and disbelief. They've just sunk the pride of the Royal Navy. But Lutyens shows no emotion. "Focus fire on Prince of Wales," he orders. The German guns swing to the new target. Prince of Wales, so new she still has civilian contractors aboard working out mechanical problems, fights back valiantly. She scores several hits on Bismarck before mechanical failures force her to withdraw, disappearing into the fog. Bismarck has won the battle, but at a cost. The shell damage has reduced her speed and she's leaving a trail of oil in her wake. As damage reports flood in, Lutyens realizes the grim truth. Bismarck is too damaged to continue the mission. She needs repairs, and the only port within reach is Saint-Nazaire in occupied France. He orders Prinz Eugen to detach and continue raiding alone while Bismarck makes for port. That evening, as the ships part ways in worsening weather, neither crew knows they're seeing each other for the last time. Throughout May 24th and 25th, British ships shadow Bismarck using radar, staying just beyond gun range. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, the aircraft carrier HMS Victorious launches 9 Fairey Swordfish torpedo bombers into deteriorating weather. Led by Lieutenant Commander Eugene Esmond, the obsolete biplanes, relics from another era with fabric-covered wings and open cockpits, press through heavy weather to attack the German battleship. They score 1 torpedo hit amidships, causing minor damage. But Bismarck's violent evasive maneuvers loosen the collision mats covering her earlier damage, causing more flooding and forcing her to slow for repairs. Then the British make a critical error. In the early hours of May 25th, they lose contact with Bismarck. Tovey's ship search northeast, assuming she's returning to Norway. But Lutyens, believing he's still being shadowed, breaks radio silence to send detailed reports to German headquarters. British intelligence intercepts the transmissions and triangulates his position. Bismarck isn't heading to Norway. She's making for France. The chase resumes, but several of Tovey's closest ships search in the wrong direction, wasting precious fuel and time. May 26th, 10:30 a.m. An American-built PBY Catalina flying boat from RAF Coastal Command, piloted by Flying Officer Dennis Briggs with American co-pilot Ensign Leonard Smith, spots Bismarck through a break in the clouds. They're only 700 miles from Brest, less than a day's sailing. If Bismarck reaches the French coast, she'll be under Luftwaffe air cover and practically untouchable. Tovey's battleships are still 150 miles behind, running low on fuel. If Bismarck isn't slowed down in the next few hours, she'll escape. The only hope lies with Force H steaming north from Gibraltar, the battlecruiser Renown, and the aircraft carrier Ark Royal. At 2:50 p.m., Ark Royal launches 15 Swordfish torpedo bombers. But confusion strikes. The aircrew haven't been told that the cruiser Sheffield is shadowing Bismarck. In poor visibility, they mistake Sheffield for their target and attack. Fortunately, the new magnetic detonators on their torpedoes malfunction, exploding prematurely when they hit the water. Sheffield evades the rest. The bungled attack, while embarrassing, proves a blessing. The faulty detonators are discovered and replaced with reliable contact ones. At 7:10 p.m., 15 Swordfish take off again from Ark Royal's pitching deck. The weather is atrocious, winds gusting to 50 miles per hour, heavy rain, and visibility near zero. The obsolete biplanes struggle through the storm, guided by Sheffield toward their target. At 8:47 p.m., they attack. Bismarck's anti-aircraft guns open up, filling the sky with flak. The Swordfish fly so low and slow that Bismarck's modern fire control systems, designed for faster aircraft, struggle to track them. Heavy shells fired into the sea create towering waterspouts meant to damage the fragile planes, but the Swordfish weave through the defensive fire. Torpedoes drop into the churning sea. Most miss or strike Bismarck's heavy armor belt harmlessly. But then, at 9:15 p.m., disaster strikes. A single torpedo slams into Bismarck's stern, jamming her twin rudders at 12 degrees to port. Damage control teams scramble below decks. Divers are sent into the flooded steering compartment. Engineers work frantically. They manage to free one rudder, but it's not enough. Bismarck can only sail in a wide circle. Attempts to steer using her propellers fail in the heavy seas. At 10 p.m., Lucian sends a grim message to headquarters. Ship unmaneuverable. We will fight to the last shell. Long live the Führer. Throughout the night of May 26th to 27th, British and Polish destroyers harry the crippled battleship. HMS Maori, Sikh, Zulu, Cossack, and the Polish destroyer Piorin make repeated torpedo runs. Bismarck's guns fire back, illuminating the night with muzzle flashes, but score no hits. The attacks are meant to exhaust the German crew, and they succeed. Below decks, men work themselves to exhaustion trying to repair the rudder. On the bridge, officers know the end is coming. As dawn approaches, the crew is told to prepare for battle. May 27th, 8:47 a.m. Through the morning mist, the silhouettes of HMS King George V and HMS Rodney appear. Admiral Tovey has finally caught his prey. The range is 23,000 yards. Rodney fires first. The shells fall short, sending up massive fountains of water. "Open fire," orders Captain Lindemann. Bismarck's guns roar in defiance, but her inability to maneuver makes accurate fire nearly impossible. The British ships close in, their shells landing closer with each salvo. At 8:59 a.m., a 16-inch shell from Rodney strikes Bismarck's forward superstructure. The bridge is obliterated instantly. Lutyens, Lindemann, and every senior officer on the bridge die in the blast. Command devolves to junior officers deep within the ship. Bismarck fights on, but it's hopeless. Rodney closes to point-blank range, just 3,000 yards. and continues firing. King George V circles to the opposite side. The heavy cruisers Norfolk and Dorsetshire join the bombardment. Over the next hour, the British ships fire more than 2,800 shells and score over 400 hits. Bismarck is transformed into a blazing wreck. Fire consumes her superstructure. Her guns are knocked out one by one. The forward turrets fall silent first, their mechanisms jammed by direct hits. Then the aft turrets cease firing. The last turret falls silent at 9:31 a.m. By 10 a.m., every gun aboard the once mighty battleship has been silenced. She's listing heavily to port, her deck littered with wreckage and casualties. Men lie dead at their posts. Others, wounded and burned, seek shelter wherever they can find it. The ship's medical facilities are overwhelmed. Yet incredibly, despite the devastation, Bismarck still refuses to sink. The British shells have devastated everything above the waterline. The superstructure is a twisted ruin. Fires rage throughout the upper decks, but they can't penetrate the thick armored citadel protecting her machinery and hull below the waterline. The German designers built her to survive, and survive she does, even as she becomes a floating inferno. Deep inside the dying ship, Lieutenant Commander Hans Gerhard Unach, Chief of Damage Control, receives the order no sailor wants to hear. Scuttle the ship. Demolition charges are set throughout the vessel. Seacocks are opened. The few surviving crew members are ordered to abandon ship. Men jump into the oil-slicked, freezing Atlantic waters. At 10:15 a.m., Dorsetshire closes in and fires 3 torpedoes into Bismarck's hull. At 10:39 a.m., Bismarck rolls over to port. Her massive propellers rise into the air, still turning slowly. Then she slides stern first beneath the waves, disappearing into 4,800 meters of water. The ocean is filled with hundreds of men, clinging to debris, calling for help. Dorsetshire and the destroyer Maury move in to rescue survivors. They pull 110 men from the water. Then at 11:40 a.m., a U-boat alarm sounds. Fearing torpedo attack, the British ships are forced to withdraw, leaving hundreds of men to their fate. Over the following days, a German U-boat and weather ship rescue 5 more survivors. Of Bismarck's 2,200 crew, only 115 survive. The sinking of the Bismarck shook Germany to its core. Hitler, already wary of surface warfare against Britain's Royal Navy, loses what little confidence he had. The Kriegsmarine's capital ships will spend most of the remaining war bottled up in Norwegian fjords, threats that never materialize. For Britain, the victory is cathartic. Hood has been avenged. The threat to the Atlantic convoys is eliminated. But the cost was staggering. 1,419 men lost on Hood, over 2,000 Germans dead, and countless resources expended in the hunt. The Battle of the Bismarck would be remembered as one of the most dramatic naval chases in history. It demonstrated the vulnerability of even the mightiest surface ships to air attack, a lesson the Japanese would apply at Pearl Harbor 7 months later. The obsolete Swordfish biplane, dismissed by many as a relic, had sealed the fate of the most modern battleship afloat. One torpedo, striking the weakest point at exactly the right moment, had doomed a vessel that could withstand direct hits from battleship guns. In June 1989, oceanographer Robert Ballard discovered Bismarck's wreck sitting upright on the seafloor 400 miles west of Brest. The great ship remains there still, a testament to those who served aboard her, young men on both sides who answered their nation's call in history's darkest hour. The Bismarck's first voyage was her last, but in 9 days of operation, she changed the course of naval warfare forever and became legend.